Welcome to the Undisputed podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Taft. This podcast is the full show from today's episode of Undisputed from start to finish. They've got a busy slate, so skip Shannon. Let's get to it.
Good morning. Welcome to Undisputed. I'm Jenny Taft with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe. How about today, guys? We got some big news. How we doing?
What the big news is, Jenny? What the big news is? I ain't here.
You know, Shannon and Jenny, Rob Gronkowski did a great job last NFL season working with us here at Fox. So now he's going to go win, what, a couple of more Super Bowls with Tom Brady, and then we hope he'll come back to us.
Okay. I don't like to be the bearer of bad news, Skip, but I don't really see that happening.
All right. Let's get right to it because, guys, it is going to be a reunion in Tampa this season. The Patriots have agreed to trade Rob Gronkowski and a 7th-round draft pick to the Bucs for a 4th-round pick. Now, Gronk obviously did retire after the 2018 season, but he said yesterday, I always said, when I have that feeling and it feels right, I will be ready to take the field again. And I have that feeling. I am ready. So, Shannon, how much better does this make the Bucs next season?
I think he helps, but there's a big question mark. We don't know what Gronk we're going to get. Skip, you remember before the last season that he retired, Coach Belichick tried to trade him. He tried to move him to Detroit, and Gronk said, I would rather retire than not play with Tom Brady. And so they brought him back, and it turned out very well for him. But Skip, his last season, I think he missed 3 games. He had his lowest number since his rookie season, 52 yards per game, only tied a career low with 3 touchdowns. So we don't know what Gronk we're going to get because he has an extensive injury history. I counted 11 injuries going back to 2009 in college. He had back surgery, fractured vertebrae, torn ACL, MCL, chest, lung contusion, herniated disc. Skip, you know all about his injury history. And now you don't really like guys with injury history, especially as they start to age. So I'm interested to see how you feel about Gronk. Gronk is going to be on the north side of 30 with that injury history. So that's what the unknown is, Skip. We know when this young man, well, he's not young anymore, but we know what Gronk can do when he's healthy. And he did that healthy. And I'm not so sure he was happy because it seems to me when the feeling got right, once he could be a possibility, he could be out of New England. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Now, what this means, Skip, they're probably going to move on from one of those tight ends. I don't see them keeping 3 tight ends of this caliber on the roster. We never know, but I would be surprised if that were to happen because they did give up a 4th-round pick. And so maybe they can move. I'm thinking they'll probably move Howard, try to get a 2nd or a 3rd-round pick for him. But because O.J. Howard is immensely talented, Skip, I don't even think he's scratched the surface of how good he can be. So I think he would probably be the odd man out. But, Skip, when it goes to Gronk, again, everything comes back to how healthy is he. And remember, Skip, he's a year removed. This is not like someone just starting, you know what, I'm going to take 6 months off, I'm going to take a year off and go pick back up at a normal job. This is coming back playing collision football at the highest level because Gronk has a legacy. He has an expectation of how he should and could play. And so that's what we know he is. It remains to be seen if he can be that once again.
Shannon Sharpe, can you say Super Bowl? Can you see the 7-9 Bucs, the Buccaneers, in next year's Super Bowl, which happens to be in their home stadium? I can. I think this is the move that puts this team over the top. I told you, I really like this team just with Tom Brady and all those weapons that he did not have last year in New England. And all of a sudden, I love this team, and Fox Bet loves this team because the odds just vaulted from 16-1 to win next year's Super Bowl all the way up to 12-1, which is one notch up above the New Orleans Saints, who happen to be in the same division with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're at 13-1. So all of a sudden, Brady and Gronk's team favored over Drew Brees and Sean Payton's team. I love it. And I love the bet that we already made. You bet me that the New England Patriots would have a better record next year than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I said 12-4 for the Bucs. I'll stick with my 12-4, though. It's with a bullet now. And I said 8-8 for New England. I'm not even sure they can go 8-8. So I love my bet there. And I like Gronkowski's chances next year with Tom Brady because, as you know, they are like brothers. Gronk had burned out on Bill Belichick and the tyrant and the dictatorship that Bill Belichick sort of ran for all those years that Brady and Gronk were together in New England. I think both of them burned out on it. Now they're going to be reunited under a coach who is fun to play for, Bruce Arians, in a not good but great offensive system featuring two other, as you mentioned, very good tight ends and two Pro Bowl wideouts. That means that the onus, the pressure, the responsibility will no longer be all on Gronkowski. You can mix and match him with the others. And again, this is just me. I'll get into this in just a minute. I don't want to see them trade O.J. Howard. I can't believe that Belichick didn't demand in return O.J. Howard, but he was somewhat in Arians' doghouse last year. He's still a young player coming of age. He was a 17th overall player picked in that draft in 2017. I still think they need him to take some of the reps off Gronk so that Gronk can be used sparingly through the regular season and be completely fresh for the playoffs. And there are going to be playoffs for what used to be the Buccaneers. And remember, Gronk needed a year off, Shannon. At this stage and age, he needed 1 year to heal up physically and psychologically and mentally. He said he'd lost his joy for playing football. Bruce Arians, and obviously with Tom Brady, will bring back that joy. He needed now to play in warm weather. And Shannon, you and I know how much warm weather can help those creaking old bones of Gronk. He's in the perfect place where he won't be asked to do nearly as much. You can flex him out in the formation. You can play more in the slot. He's still the best blocking tight end in football. If you want to use him some in run formations, that's fine. But the two of them together, to me, you want to talk about crazy momentum they're going to create? Shannon, we're talking about two GOATs. We're talking about GOAT Brady and GOAT Gronk, the greatest tight end ever. Even you have admitted on this show, he's the greatest tight end ever. He's even a little bit better than my man Shannon Sharpe was. And my man Shannon Sharpe's in the Hall of Fame. So he's just 30, so it's not like he's 37 like Jason Witten was when he tried to come back after a year. He's still 30, and I believe that refreshed, his personality is, as we know, maybe as big as any personality in sports. I say on name recognition, just on star impact, if you want to call it Q factor, you have the two biggest names in pro football. Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, and suddenly they're in Tampa. And Tampa acquired both of them for no more than a fourth-round pick, which is actually more like a fifth-round pick, because they also got a seventh. So that sort of mitigates the fourth and makes it more like a fifth. So they just stole two GOATs for a grand total of what amounted to a fifth-round pick. That is momentum. That is star power. That is bringing two guys into a system, that a culture that needed to change and realize how great it could be with 4 weapons and now 5 weapons that Tom did not have last year in New England. And what I love the most about this, Shannon Sharpe, is that Tom Brady now has one guy he completely knows, trusts, and can depend on under fire in the clutch in big games, big battles within the division against New Orleans or in big playoff games. I was a little concerned that Tom, with a quarantine-shortened preseason as we go into next football season, we still don't know exactly how that's going to fall out. But if it's shortened, if it's abbreviated, at least he's got one guy that he completely trusts. In fact, this was the greatest security blanket I think any quarterback has ever had, was Rob Gronkowski. And I know his numbers were a little off in his last season that he played in 2018. But when it came time, do you remember who caught the biggest pass on 3rd and 10 at Kansas City in overtime? The third of the 3 3rd and 10 conversions went to Rob Gronkowski. Do you remember who started and finished the game-winning drive in the Super Bowl against the Rams? 1st and 10 on that drive in which Brady completed 4 straight passes. First one went to Rob Gronkowski, and the last one went to Rob Gronkowski for 29 yards down to the 2, which scored the game-winning touchdown. So I saw playoff Gronk, and by the way, he owns every stat. He's the greatest playoff tight end receiving tight end that we've ever seen. And now I think he's reinvigorated, sort of reinvented in Tampa with Tom Brady. And now I love their chances of not only winning the division, but of competing for next year's Super Bowl. Say it with me, Shannon Sharpe, Super Bowl.
It ain't gonna happen. You know, Skip, when I look at this move and looking at my timeline yesterday, a lot of people are surprised. I'm not surprised. Put it like this. I'm not surprised Coach Belichick traded him. I'm surprised that he wanted to come back, Skip, because he seemed like he was very happy. You know, Gronk, myself, and Tony sat down, I think it was last year, Skip, right before the season started, and talked about the evolution of the tight end position and how it transitioned to more of a throw into the tight end as opposed to a blocking. So he seemed very happy working at Fox game show. He seemed very happy doing the wrestling thing. So I thought he was content in his normal life, away from football. I'm not surprised Coach Belichick traded him, because Coach Belichick tried to trade him 2 years ago. So I'm not surprised by that. And he had more. Skip, I think the thing is, and people are like, well, he only got a 4th round pick, and when you mitigate the circumstances, basically it's a 5th round pick. But I think when you look at it, Gronk had his worst season statistically since his rookie season, and he took a year off, Skip. I think those are mitigating circumstances that led to him only really having to receive a 4th round pick. Now, had Gronk played last year, played like the Gronk of old, now I'm thinking you're going to see something like a 2nd, maybe even a 3rd round draft pick, Skip. But you do have to factor in, he missed a year. He's going to be 31 at the start of the season. He does have an extensive history. But Skip, when the man plays, he plays extremely well. And I'm looking at how many games he's missed in his career. In his 9-year career, he's missed 34 games. That's almost 4 games a season. There's no question in my mind this man would be over 100 touchdowns had he been able to take the field in all those games. And that's the thing that I hate most about him, Skip. I wanted to see what he could have been. Now, we know how dominant he is, but what could he have been had he not missed that time with injury? And the injury history is extensive. So, Skip, that is an unknown. When a guy takes off, he takes a year off after he has his worst statistical season. So it remains, there's an unknown there. But if he can come back at 80% of what he was, healthy, Skip, he's going to be tough to deal with. And I expect Tampa to play a lot of 12 personnel, Skip. That's 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, and 1 running back. 21 personnel, obviously, is 2 wide receivers, 2 backs, 1 tight end. When you have those kind of tight ends on the field, Skip, you don't want to leave one of them on the sideline. You want his butt on the field. So play a lot of 12 personnel. And remember, Skip, Aaron Hernandez and Gronk, that was the year Gronk set the tight end record. Well, I think he tied it with 16 receiving touchdowns when they played heavy 12 personnel. So Tom is very familiar with this formation. He has no problem throwing to the tight ends. With those 2 dogs outside, with Godwin and Mike Evans, and 2 tight ends set, man, they're going to be tough to deal with, Skip. They'll be tough to deal with.
Shannon Sharpe, how are you going to stop this offense as it's directed by 2 of the great offensive minds we've ever seen in pro football, and Bruce Arians and the great Tom Moore, who was Peyton's coach early on in Indianapolis, and combined, the Tom Moore is sort of advising Byron Leftwich, is obviously the hands-on sort of offensive coordinator, but Bruce Arians will coordinate this offense. And you have, obviously, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin made the Pro Bowl last year. Remember, Jameis Winston threw for 5,000 plus yards in this offense, led the league in passing yards, and he's not exactly Tom Brady. So if you clean up the 35 turnovers, 30 interceptions and 5 lost fumbles, and you put Tom Brady at the controls and you let him occasionally change plays or run option routes at the line of scrimmage, help me out here. You played the position. Are you going to double Gronk? Are you going to leave him in single and let him just rip you up the seam or on those crossing routes on 3rd and 5 where you just can't cover him? He's 6'6", 270 pounds. Now, he has lost weight, obviously. I think that's a good thing. I think that's what he needed to do this late in his career. And again, he's only 30. I think he's got maybe 3 prime years left. But the point is, how do you, if you're a defensive coordinator, who do you double? I say you can double nobody, because even with Cameron Brate, who's an excellent red zone target, and O.J. Howard, who's a flat-out baby stud, who hasn't sort of grown into his ability just yet, who do you stop? Who do you say, let's take him out of the attack? Because Gronk requires, when he's Gronk and when he's right, he requires 2 people to cover him.
You're right, Skip. And I think the thing is, early on, they're going to try to, now he has name recognition. He's Gronk. He'll have the number 87 jersey on, obviously. Skip, he's Gronk. But I think early on, teams are going to make him prove that he's still that same guy. So you might see a lot of coverage. You might see a lot of, I don't think they're going to double him right out the box until he proves that he's still some resemblance of what he was before he left. I don't think you start right away, Skip, and says, okay, we're doubling Gronk and we're going to leave you one-on-one outside with Godwin and Evans. I don't think that's going to happen. Now, Skip, I could be wrong. Now, if he gets into preseason, I don't know how much, if there is going to be a preseason, or how much he's going to play. But if he gives the impression that he's a resemblance of himself, well, then you're going to have problems. I think the thing, Skip, the reason why I say O.J. Howard probably is the odd man out, because I think B.A. has been very hard. Bruce Arians has been very hard. He's like, yeah, when all the ability is there. He's this tall, he weighs this much, he can run like this here, but I don't see the production on Sunday. So Bruce Arians, Skip, he's going to tell you exactly what he's thinking. There's no, man, I wonder what B.A. is thinking. I wonder how he feels about certain, you know how he felt about Jameis, because he told you. They asked him a question, do you think you can win with another quarterback? He's like, we won with that one. I'm sure we can win with another one. And when he said, yeah, I know what O.J. Howard's measurables are, but I don't see the production to match those measurables, it lets you know, well, for what he is and how fast he is and how big he is, that production does not match up. So that's why I'm saying I think he might be the odd man out, Skip. But if Gronk is a resemblance, 80% of what he was, the league is going to, the NFC is going to have hell on their hands. But I tell you what, Skip, even with Gronk, even with Tom Brady, you notice something, Skip? They didn't jump in front of Kansas City. They didn't jump in front of Baltimore. Even with Gronk, even with Tom Brady, they still don't have better odds than my homeboy and L. Jack. Why is that, Skip?
Well, those guys are in what's called the AFC, if you remember. So I'm just liking them to get to the Super Bowl. And I do remind you, no home team has ever played in a home Super Bowl, and the next Super Bowl is in Tampa, Florida. So I'm starting to like meant-to-be chances of GOAT Brady and GOAT Gronk in Tampa to take a team that is supremely talented but just needed a culture shock change, needed to be taught how to win. I like their chances. And by the way, on O.J. Howard, I still love him. And I still believe they need to hang on to him, Shannon, because he's the more talented tight end between him and Cameron Brate. Remember, Cameron Brate was out of Harvard, undrafted in 2014. And last year, O.J. Howard played significantly more snaps than Cameron Brate. Cameron Brate's a good blocker, and he's a good red zone target because he runs sharp, precise routes. We get that. But the stud, the talent, the supremely gifted one is O.J. Howard. So I would hang on to O.J. Howard and maybe even feature him at points during the regular season to take some of the reps off Gronk and try to keep him fresh. I think O.J. Howard is too valuable to give away. Even if somebody would give you a 2 for him ahead of the draft, I still think they should hang on to him, and I'm shocked that they got to hang on to him while adding Gronk.
Well, you would think that Coach Belichick would probably want some compensation back in return as far as tight end, but Skip, they're so far up against the cap, they probably only have $1.50 left in cap space. So it wasn't a whole lot they can do. That was one of the reasons that we're so readily to move on from Gronk. Gronk has a $10 million cap hit. So you hold on to him, you're way over, and Coach Belichick seems to be trying to rebuild this thing, get this thing up under the cap, because he knows, Skip, you still got draft picks. They still got first-round draft picks, so they're going to have to more money that's going to have to go out. So I think that's one of the things, Skip. I can't disagree with you on O.J. Howard. You might keep him, and hopefully he gets an opportunity to see how Gronk prepares, see how Gronk studies, see how Gronk practices, see how Gronk plays. And then that might be something, Skip, when Gronk moves on, decide it, because they just think, Skip, it might be just a one-year rental. But at least you would have that knowledge that Gronk was able to partake on him and he was able to pick up. And you says, okay, a switch goes off and he says, okay, this is how I'm supposed to play the position. This is what I'm supposed to be. Skip, that guy has all, Skip, you remember in the national championship game, one game he went for 205 on about 5 catches, and the next season he came back with a $180 on 5 or 6 catches. So he has potential to be great. It's just a matter of the switch needs to go off. He needs to understand, Skip, you just can't out-talent guys in the NFL because all them jokers got talent. You can do that in Alabama because, you have the more talented football team. But in the NFL, everybody has that, and so he just needs to fine-tune some things. He can be special, Skip. He really can be.
And by the way, he's still on his rookie contract, so he's scheduled this coming year to make only $2 million. So it's not like he was a high, like a big ticket item. But Shannon, I need to go back to the point I was making about how Rob Gronkowski is the greatest ever tight end in the postseason. Just to throw a couple of quick numbers at you. All-time career playoff receptions. He leads all tight ends at 81. There's this guy named Shannon Sharpe who's tied for third there with 62. That's not bad with Jay Novacek. Not bad. All-time receiving yards in the playoffs for a tight end. Gronk is 1,163. Shannon Sharpe's tied for fourth. Not bad at 814. And then how about touchdowns? Big play Shea touchdowns. Gronk, all-time postseason, has 12 touchdowns. Shannon, shockingly, is only tied for 8th at 4 touchdowns. So big play Shea, he wasn't quite as big play in the postseason. I don't know. I just throw that out there.
That's good. Though Gronk has more big plays, I was big play. I just get you one. I get you one per game. That was all I was big. As I started the age, Skip, that's all I had in me, Skip. But he's dominant. Okay. And that's why you're willing, Skip. Normally guys that move away from the game after they struggled the last year, and I don't think he struggled. I just think, like you said, he was worn down mentally, physically, emotionally, and he needed a break. And so having struggled a little bit with the injuries, nagging injuries in his last year, take a year away from the game, that's why Tampa was willing to make this move. There is no downside to this, Skip. Even if he doesn't come in and he doesn't give you what Gronk once was, there is no downside to this. There's only upside, and you have to be willing to roll the dice. No risk, no reward.
I like how Skip threw those numbers in just for context. That was important to have. All right, guys, we know what to expect from the Bucs next season. But you know what? Did Belichick get a raw deal sending Gronk to the Bucs? We go deeper next. No mercy. Welcome back to Undisputed. Well, the Patriots have agreed to trade Rob Gronkowski and a 7th-round draft pick to the Buccaneers for only a 4th-round pick in return. So, Shannon, did Bill Belichick get fleeced in this trade?
I don't believe so, Skip. I think, like I said, remember, Skip, he tried to trade him earlier. Now, he's trying to trade him. He traded him now after knowing that Gronk had been out a year and saying that the only way I'm playing with Tom Brady. You can't put him on the open market because he's already made that public. I'm not playing unless Brady's my quarterback. So what are you going to get for him? Skip, you remember there was a situation where Mike Shanahan, my former coach, tried to trade Jake Plummer to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and John Gruden. And Jake says, if you trade me, I'm going to retire. Well, Mike called his bluff and traded him, and Jake Plummer retired. So, Skip, I'm not going to give a trade for someone that's going to retire, give up a draft pick, and then I'm out of a draft pick. No, Coach Belichick didn't have a whole lot of leverage. He got what he could, but you plus remember, Skip, Coach Belichick did not anticipate Gronk giving him anything. He was retired. So if I don't anticipate anything, Skip, if I throw something out, and I'm not calling Gronk trash, but I'm saying if I set something side the curb, somebody says like, you throwing this away? I'm like, yeah. How about I give you $50 for it? Okay. I'm in no position to argue, Skip, because I didn't want it anyway. I didn't anticipate having it. I'm letting it go. Skip, if you and I both know, had Gronk had that great season, let's just say he plays last year. Forget the season that he had. He plays last year. He has some tape. And let's just say Gronk is 70 and 8 touchdowns. It's hard for me to believe that Coach Belichick can't get at least, at bare minimum, third rounder without having to give up that seventh rounder. But because he took that year off, because his numbers were uncustomarily Gronk the year before, I think that had a lot to do with it. Plus, Skip, like I said, Coach Belichick only has $1.50 in cap space. What the hell are he going to do with $10 million? So I don't think he got fleeced. I think Coach Belichick's like, but what Coach Belichick is doing, Skip, you see this. He wants guys that want to be there. I think those other two guys, this is kind of worn on them, Skip. And when you're young, you can tolerate a lot of things, Skip. But as I got older, my nerves started to fray. And all that yelling and run stuff over again and repeat, it gets on your nerves, Skip. Now, Mike Shanahan, my former coach, and Brian Billick was nothing like Bill Belichick. I can imagine. But I remember, Skip Bayless, when Lane Johnson said, they're not having fun over there. They're just all, and Skip Bayless and everybody creamed it. And lo and behold, just not 2 years later, the whole thing went to shambles.
You have not heard me condemn Coach Belichick's culture just because Brady and Gronk finally burned out on it and said, that's enough. Obviously, Tom lasted 20 years, and I can't argue, obviously, with 9 Super Bowls and 6 rings. So it was working in large part because Tom Brady helped make it work, because he was always the buffer, the mediator in the locker room, telling all the younger players, it's okay, just swallow it, bite your tongue, do your job like he asked you to do, and we're going to win rings. And because he set that tone and example, it continued to work. But again, to your point, Belichick did want to trade Gronk before his final season, which was 2 seasons ago. And he had a deal in place with Detroit for a first-round pick. Okay, fair is fair. First rounder for Rob Gronkowski, greatest tight end ever. At that point, he was still 28 years of age. And yet Gronk said, no, I only want to play with Tom Brady. So to me, back to Jenny's question, the harder I look at this, the more it feels like Bill Belichick did get fleeced. And maybe he wanted to get fleeced. Maybe he wants to say to the world, hey, I don't need Tom Brady. I'll let him go for nothing. I don't even need Rob Gronkowski. I'll just basically give him away for a 4th and also give them a 7th. So it's sort of, as we talked about, it actually mitigates to a 5th. So I basically, he's saying, I give him away and I'll show you. I'll take all these spare parts, these faceless, nameless cogs, and I'll rebuild on the fly here, and I'll win without them. And I think that's what he's trying to do, because, Shannon, I get it that Rob Gronkowski was not going to play for Bill Belichick. That was a done deal. That was a given. But the other half of that equation was he only was going to play for one man, one team, and that was Tom Brady's Buccaneers. So Belichick had to know, well, wait a second, I do have leverage here, because that's the only place he's going to go. And they desperately would love to have him. They don't need him. They still got 2 quality tight ends, but they don't have Rob Gronkowski. And obviously behind the scenes, Tom Brady was pushing like crazy. Psycho Tom was going psycho over, you got to get this done. Well, if you got to get it done, then either A, you give up O.J. Howard, tight end for tight end, and I would have been fine with that swap as much as I believe in the future of O.J. Howard. I still think that would have been a fair deal for both sides, a good deal for both sides, and that didn't happen. So then as a fallback, you'd say to Tampa, well, give us a 2. Give us a second rounder for Rob Gronkowski, because I still believe Tampa would have done that. Tampa has a second rounder in this upcoming Thursday night draft. Bill Belichick gave up his second rounder for Mohamed Sanu. Even you said bust, swing and miss by Bill Belichick. And seriously, Shannon, when I step back from this, I say, well, obviously, Bill is an all-time great defensive football coach. There's no doubt about that. And you can certainly make the case, as you often do, that he's the greatest football coach ever. I still think it's Bill Walsh, but we could fight about that another day. But when we talk about team building, when we talk about Trader Bill, he's looking all-time bad, because just in recent memory, he just gave away Jimmy G. I don't know what it was. Was it a spite move because he was forced to trade him by Robert Kraft? He calls up John Lynch and Kyle Shannon and says, hey, I got a deal for you. Would you give me a 2 for Jimmy Garoppolo? And they're like, seriously? They thought it was like an April Fool's joke. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll give you a 2 for Jimmy G. And they got their starting quarterback, and we're going to talk about them later, because they had a chance to get Tom Brady and decided to even stick with Jimmy G that they stole for a 2. So was that a spite trade by Bill Belichick? I have no idea. But then we go to, remember, he then, I thought, pretty much gave away Jacoby Brissett, another quarterback he developed, who's been a starting quarterback and a decent starting quarterback in this league. He gave him away for Philip Dorsett, who's now gone to Seattle. I don't know. That wasn't, you don't trade a potential starting quarterback for kind of a bust of a first-round pick wide receiver in Indy, who did some nice, he had his moments for Tom Brady, but not like what Jacoby Brissett has done. We talked about the Sanu deal. That was just a swing and a miss. And then, I don't know, Duron Harmon, he just traded away to Detroit for a 5th-round pick, and Duron was a starter for this team last year for New England. So, Shannon, I don't know. It looks like Trader Bill is he's looking worse and worse.
Well, Skip, I want to stick to this trade, but you have to understand that but if I'm not mistaken, Skip, they were going to trade Gronk and either a 2nd or a 3rd for Detroit's 1st-round pick. And I think the thing is, but you also have to understand, Gronk was was the all-pro tight end, and he went to the Pro Bowl. So that's what you have. So that's what you're bargaining with right there. So look, and like you said, he was under the age of 30. So I can go to you like, look, this is the best tight end in football. He's under the age of 30. He just had an all-pro Pro Bowl type Pro Bowl season. If you want him, this is what it's going to take. Now take that away. The next year, Skip, he has his worst season since his rookie season, tied for a career low in touchdowns with 3. And the year after that, he sets out the entire season. Skip, a 4th-round pick is more than what the Patriots thought they would get from Rob Gronkowski this season, because they did not anticipate him playing at all. So at least Coach Belichick says, look, if he's not going to play for me and he wants to play over there, I got no problem with that. That just goes to show you. Coach Belichick basically just said, I don't care. I would not be surprised if Julian Edelman might get traded there, or he might get released. But the thing is, Skip Bayless, if we mention Tua in all of his injury history, shouldn't we bring that up with Gronk, with his injury history on the other side of 30? Because he's going to be 31 next month, Skip. You keep talking about 30. He's 1 month away. Now, we know what he can be, but his injury history is extensive, and he's been injured more times than we wish that he had been. So that's there also. So for Skip, I think Coach Belichick got what he can get, given the circumstances, given that Gronk had let it be known publicly, I'm either playing with Brady or I'm not playing. So you don't have the leverage that you once had. And Skip, that's why your teams want players to keep trade requests hush. Because once that becomes public, you lose a lot of the ability to get fair compensation. Not that you're going to get fair compensation. They're looking at basketball because they trade players left and right. But you want to keep that demand down, so, it just comes out of the blues like, oh, really? Okay, yeah, we'll give you that. Like Ngakoue in Jacksonville, Skip, he's letting it be known. Well, how is Jacksonville gonna get fair compensation if he's arguing with the owner's son on Twitter and letting it be known he wants out? How are they ever gonna get fair compensation?
Okay, back to one quick point that you made. The proposed Detroit deal before, this is going back 2 years ago, before his final season in New England, Gronk's, the proposed deal was New England was going to get a first-round pick. They were just going to trade places with Detroit in the second round. So that was the deal on the table that Gronk, Gronk successfully vetoed it because he said, I only want to play with Tom Brady. I don't want to go to Detroit. Now back to O.J. Howard. Again, I have read this. I have heard this. I don't know this for a dead solid fact, but I think Belichick has talked to Tampa about trading for O.J. Howard in the past. So there was already interest there that had never come to fruition. So I still don't quite understand how he couldn't have pushed for and finally won O.J. Howard. The only plausible theory here is because O.J. did wind up some in Bruce Arians' doghouse last year because he still was, he hadn't quite grown up yet. Is it possible that Belichick called Nick Saban? And obviously they're very close. There was a documentary done on the two of them, or sort of a sit down with the two of them. Did he call Saban and Saban warned him off O.J.? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure, because I've heard and read this so many times, I'm pretty sure Belichick at least kicked the tires of trading for O.J. Howard before. So how Tampa wound up with Gronk and kept O.J. Howard is beyond, it's beyond belief to me, because Tampa can use O.J. Howard, as we talked about earlier, to take some of the reps off Gronk and try to keep him fresher for a playoff run. So to me, man, Bill turns out looking so bad because he winds up, he gives away a 7, winds up with a 4, and he still has $13 million in dead money on his cap from Tom Brady. So in New England, I'm sure, Patriot Nation is sitting back saying, Coach, wait a second. You just let 2 goats go to Tampa, and all you have to show for it is a 4th that's actually more like a 5th. And wait a second, you still owe, you had to eat $13 million of Brady's dead cap money. I mean, that's just horrible on top of horrible. And then, Shannon, obviously, I look down at what just happened in free agency, and New England did next to nothing in free agency, and there was pretty much this mass exodus. You can say they're all just cogs, they're all just no-name sort of pieces, but they lost Kyle Van Noy and Dorsett and Ted Karras, their starting center last year, and Danny Shelton and Landon Roberts and Jamie Collins, and they cut Gostkowski, and they traded, as I just mentioned, Deron Harmon, and all they added was, help me out if you know these people, Bo Allen, Demir Bird, I know him a little bit from Arizona, Adrian Phillips, a good special teams player, and they brought back Brian Hoyer for the 3rd time. And they kept Devin McCourty, obviously, and they tagged Joe Thuney, and that's it. I just gave you their offseason. And it looks like they are going forward with Stid, as in Jared Stidham, the next Tom Brady? Seriously? So Shannon, are you sure about the Patriots having a better record next year than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Because that's our bet.
Well, Skip, it is what it is now, and I wouldn't be surprised if Coach Belichick traded Joe Thuney, because $14 million for a guard that didn't make the Pro Bowl and that's not an all-pro, that's a lot of bread, Skip, for a guy. That's not Zach Martin. That's not the kid up in Indy. Those are the 2 premier guards in all of football. So that's a lot of money for a guy that's a guy. And I don't get why he franchised him. I really don't. I guess they were afraid to lose him, and so they're like, look, come draft time, we're gonna move him. And I guess, Skip, because in free agency, Skip, people bid on things, and they were not going to be able to get into a bidding war with anybody because they were so cash strapped, as you mentioned. And as you say, $13 million in cap space is being eaten up by a guy that's not even on your roster, and that's Tom Brady. So that's $13 million in cap space that you could have if you found a way to somehow do Brady's deal years ago, Skip. But all they did was kept kicking the can down the road. and it kept coming, and it was going to come to this, and they just had to make that balloon payment. But Skip, when you look at it, I just think with Gronk's injury history, I think Gronk retired and coming off a season in which he was not the Gronk that we're used to. I think that aided in the fact. And Coach Belichick just simply looked at it. I'm not going to get anything out of Gronk. At least I can get a draft pick. That draft pick might turn out to be a special teams player or contribute on offense or defense. And so what do? Hold on to a guy out of spite that's not going to play for me and not get the compensation, or let him go and get some compensation? And I think that's what he did, Skip.
Yep.
Back to the O.J. Howard, Skip. You know Coach Saban loved guys from Alabama because they're coached by Coach Saban. Coach Saban was his defensive coordinator in Cleveland, and they talk extensively. So I'm surprised that they haven't pulled the trigger. So maybe, but that, Skip, when I look at it, I don't think Coach Saban, because we've seen him come to bat for Tua. We've seen him go to bat for other players that come out of Alabama. So, Skip, I don't think he would say anything negative about O.J. Howard. But like I said, you never know. But $2 million is not a lot of money. But when you only got $1.50 in cap space, $2 million seems like $20 million.
Okay, so I'm going to give you an out right here, right now on live national television.
What?
We made a bet that I said Tampa would have a better record next year than New England, and you took it for 5 cases of Diet Mountain Dew.
I did.
God's Breakfast of Champions. And right now, I will let you out of the bet for just 1 case. If you just give me 1 case right now, just because I feel sorry for you and I'm so happy for Tampa today, I'll let you out of the bet for 5 cases. Would you like out of the bet right now?
Can I think about it? Can I sleep on it?
Yep, you can sleep on it.
Okay.
Or drink on it.
All right, you ponder on that. Yeah, drink on it, think on it, Shannon. You got a little bit of time.
No mercy.
Welcome back to Undisputed. So, Rob Gronkowski's entire career has been under the tightly run ship of Bill Belichick. And now, for the first time, we will see Gronk with Bruce Arians, who is notorious for being one of the most player-friendly coaches in the league, allowing his players much more freedom. So, Shannon, will Gronk run wild on Bruce Arians?
No, he will not run wild. Gronk is the guy that likes to have fun. Skip, I think the biggest compliment my teammates have ever played to me, yeah, they knew I played hard, but they say, Shannon made it fun. And I was around coaches that allowed me to be myself, allowed my personality to shine through, because they knew once I got to the practice field in the meeting rooms on Sundays, I was going to be dead serious about the task at hand, and that was to win football games. But I wanted to keep the guys loose during the course of the week. Yes, let's have fun. Now, we hit the field, it's all about that business. But, Skip, you look at Gronk. Gronk is a guy that he knows how to turn it on and turn it off. And he was really the only guy that you could tell that was his personality. I thought everybody else was like Gattaca. Skip, and you remember the movie. Everybody else was just robots, said the exact same thing, but that wasn't him. And he let his personality show through. But on the field, you could tell he was very serious. He was very he cared about his task. He knew what his job was, and his job was to go out there and dominate the game. And he dominated the game, Skip. I do not believe Gronk is going to all of a sudden get down there and start just going bonkers. That's not him. Now, he's going to have fun. Now, how much fun he can have in Tampa, I don't know. Ybor City is really the only thing that's kicking, and we don't know when they're going to open this back up again. So, but I think Gronk is going to go down there. Because, Skip, remember now, this is Rob Gronkowski. He have a legacy here. He can't go out there and catch 30 passes for 2 touchdowns. That would, what you come back for that? He's going to want to go out there and show he's still Gronk, and he's still the preeminent tight end in all of football. Yeah, I know Travis Kelce. Yeah, I know George Kittle. But, hey, Big Gronk is here. And so, Skip, I think he has something to prove, and he's going to want to prove it. So I do not think he's going to try to run amok and be a system. I think he's going to be Gronk. He's going to have his fun, but he's going to go out there and dominate and try to make his plays also.
I hope you are right, but I'll be the first to admit to you, I'm a little concerned about this aspect that Jenny just detailed. This could be a recipe for disaster, because obviously in the 9 years that Gronk played for Belichick, he was the token New England wild child. Belichick let him have a little bit of leeway he didn't let anybody else have. and Gronk occasionally bucked under that sort of those claustrophobic out-of-bounds lines that Bill drew on either side of every player. And here we go. Gronk is free. Gronk is down in the sunshine. Gronk is reunited with his blood brother, Tom Brady, under a Bruce Arians who has a favorite expression, win or lose, we booze. Gronk's going to say, yeah, I got this. Obviously, Gronk has been in WWE, and he's been having a blast in his year off, and he's done a great job for us here at Fox. And now there may be a part of Gronk who thinks, man, this will be like semi-retirement. That would be recipe for disaster, which is why I believe that both Brady and Gronkowski, to make this fly like I think it could fly, are going to have to assume new roles. I think Tom is going to have to become Belichick, and I think Gronk is going to have to become Brady, because the two of them are going to have to combine to reinvent the culture in Tampa. It's obviously been a long losing culture since they last won a Super Bowl after the 2002 football season. And they've become known as the Buccaneers, and they have the worst winning percentage of any franchise in all of sports in history. And now these two, with all their Super Bowl rings, are going to have to say, hey guys, this is how we're going to do it now. And I think Brady is going to have to not be such a nice guy. He's going to have to be a little more Psycho Tom, his alter ego, to help show the coaching staff as well as the players, man, we're going to crack the whip here. We're going to get way down to business real fast. And practices aren't going to be as loosey-goosey. And we are going to be on time, and we're not going to be 5 minutes late. And if somebody screws up in practice, I think they're going to hear about it from Brady the way we see the 98 Bulls hearing about it in practice from Michael Jordan in that behind-the-scenes video we're getting to see on The Last Dance. And I think Brady's going to have to be more driven than ever before, which is going to require Gronk to grow up one level to where he becomes the Brady in the locker room who's the buffer, the mediator, and the young players are going to come to Gronk and say, damn, is he always like that in practice? And Gronk's going to have to say, it's okay, guys. Yeah, he gets a little worked up in practice, but it's okay because he's got 6 rings and he played in 9 Super Bowls. And it's going to be okay because he will show you how to win if you'll just bite your lip and take it and learn from him. And I think all those young players are going to have to learn from Gronk. And Shannon, you know and I know, he has a high football IQ. And you know and I know he is the best blocking tight end in football, and he's going to have to demonstrate that starting in practice. That will rub off. That will open the eyes of his teammates. And in the end, you got to leave goofy Gronk behind. You can have some fun like Shannon Sharpe had some fun, but as you said, when it's time to get down to business, you got to get way down to business. And so I think you're going to see a Gronk in practice who, listen, nobody competes harder or has competed harder than Rob Gronkowski. He's got psycho side to him too. He's not fun-loving Gronk when it's, when the ball gets kicked off. So I think he'll become the Brady figure, the sort of the good cop in the locker room who can also demonstrate on the practice field, this is how we're going to do it, and listen to number 12. So Brady becomes Bill and Gronk becomes Tom. That's how I see it playing out. But it's going to require Gronk to have a new level of maturity and commitment, because if he wants to run wild, Arians is not going to stop him. He's not going to intervene on that one. So I hope Gronk sees the light down in the sunshine, that he needs to take it up a notch of maturity.
Skip, I think the thing about great players is that most coaches will give them great latitude, but they don't abuse those privileges. And I believe Rob Gronkowski is one of those guys. Coach Belichick gave him latitude that he didn't give other players. And like when he was away from football, yeah, he's slamming bears and he's WWE and he's doing all that. Because I think early on, Skip, Gronk played to his character. He's an entertainer. That's why he did so well in wrestling. He's a character, and he played to that. But he's a damn good football player. So if you're going to do this on the field, what you do off the field, as long as you're not breaking the law, have at it. Skip, I think the thing for me is that my job was to get the guys ready to go practice. And there are days in training camp, there are days during the season that Mike might have said in the morning, okay, 84, you're off today. But then Gary Kubiak would come to me later that afternoon and says, the boss don't think we're going to have a good day of practice if you're not there. So can you go for us today? No problem. So now it's my job, Skip, to get the guys ready to go practice, to let Mike know, okay, Mike, we're ready to go play. We're going to be ready come Sunday, or we're going to be ready in this preseason game. That was my mindset, Skip. Yes, Mike let me do things, we have fun. I was starting calisthenics and we laughing and joking and we telling jokes. But once Mike blew that whistle, it says, okay, it was all business. And I think Gronk will get that. And Skip, you mentioned it. I think Brady being there is that he's going to be able to put, and because Skip, the thing is now, Brady, after being somewhere for 20 years, he knew everybody's personality. He knew, come on, Jules, we got to make that play. Or the offensive line, come on, guys, we got to block better than that. He knows what to say, when to say, how to say it. Well, he's going into a new environment. So he's going to have to feel, well, who can I get on? Who can I kick in the butt? Who can I put my arm around? Like, I'm counting on you to make that play now. I need you to make that play for me next time. What guys, Skip, so that it's going to be a feeling out process that Tom's going to have to go through this. Because, Skip, I understand that Tom is very, very accomplished, but you have to understand which buttons to push in order to get the most out of an individual. And I think the really good leader, that I believe Tom is an all-time great leader, he will understand that, and he will be able to get the most out of those guys. But I agree. I think Gronk, with Tom Brady being there as the overseer, will keep him on the straight and narrow. But he going to have his fun now, Skip.
Yeah. So, Shannon, I want to conclude this discussion with the fact that in no way do I see this as an indictment of Coach Belichick's system. It's not like Brady and Gronk said, we can't take this anymore because it doesn't work. They couldn't take it anymore because one had been there for 20 years and one had been there for 9. And I do not begrudge either of those guys the opportunity to go to Tampa under when we lose, we booze Bruce Arians, who's known to knock off a little early and slip in 9 holes of golf. They're going to enjoy some of that, taking the wraps off, the psychological wraps off. So it's not, where you're driven in the ground. But again, what Coach Belichick has done in New England, and again, I'm a bigger Brady fan than Belichick, but what he's done for those 20 years is remarkable. It's all-time, and it worked because he was a tyrant, and he was a dictator, and he was a little Napoleonic, and it helped he had a Brady who bought in 1,000% and who kept telling players, it's okay, suck it up and swallow it and do what he says. But in the end, that system worked to the point it got to 9 Super Bowls and produced 6 rings. So I still honor that system. And yet Brady and Gronk together, they just said, let's go have some fun. Let's do, we'll be all business, but we'll have some of that Shannon Sharpe Memorial fun along the way.
No mercy. Big news, the Patriots have agreed to trade Rob Gronkowski and a 7th-round draft pick to the Buccaneers for a 4th-round pick. Yesterday, Gronk said, quote, I always said, when I have that feeling and it feels right, I will be ready to take the field again. And I have that feeling. I am ready. So, Skip, how much better does this make the Bucs? Gronk is back.
Shannon Sharpe. You know and I know how much I love my Dallas Cowboys, and I've loved them since I was 10 years old and attended my first game at the old Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas, and watched them lose to the St. Louis Cardinals at that point. But I must admit to you this morning, and maybe I'm a little carried away, but I don't think so, I now have a second favorite team in the NFC. And may I say, without the usual emotion that I attach to the Dallas Cowboys winning a football game, may I say, how about them Buccaneers? Shannon Sharpe, I'm sniffing, I'm feeling, I'm sort of hearing Super Bowl for Tom Brady's Buccaneers. And I think Tom Brady is about as fired up as I am because he just released a tweet with a new video that he and Gronk made. And it's silly funny, in which he's kind of blowing into a seashell down on the Tampa beach, if you will, calling birds to fly. And here comes Gronk out of nowhere, joining Tom Brady in Tampa. And it just shows you how close these two are, how much blood brothers that they are, and how excited they're going to be, just as Bucs Nation is going to be, about suddenly adding to a 7-9 team 2 GOATs. You got 2 GOATs. You got GOAT Brady and GOAT Gronk, the greatest tight end ever. Even my man Shannon Sharpe, a Hall of Fame tight end, acknowledged 4 years ago on this show, Gronk is the greatest tight end ever. And he took a year off, and he said he had lost his joy for football. And I believe he healed up psychologically and maybe to a point physically. And he needed to join Tom in a warm weather climate such as Tampa, which is better on those creaky old bones. And he's joining an offense in which Jameis Winston last year threw for more than 5,000 yards, which led the whole National Football League because he had 2 Pro Bowl wideouts. Tom Brady had no Pro Bowl wideouts because his wideouts in New England last year were last in the league in separation, featuring a battered old Julian Edelman who led the league in drops. Tom now has 5 weapons, better than any weapon he had last year in New England. So if you add Rob Gronkowski, who's still 30, again, he's about to turn 31, so he'll play next year at 31, off a year off, and with a newfound joy and reuniting with his blood brother under a Bruce Arians, who's one of the great offensive minds in the history of the game, along with Tom Moore, who definitely qualifies as the consultant for this offense as one of the great minds offensively ever. And all of a sudden, if you put Tom Brady in place of Jameis Winston, I still say he could throw for as many yards, but the turnovers, which were 35 for Jameis last year, 12 more than any other quarterback in the entire league, will be cut, what, by 2/3? And suddenly, you're going to have the most lethal offense in pro football. I think it will be beyond even my homeboy's offense in Kansas City's, because you have even more weapons. And Gronk can ease into it because you have 2 tight ends. And I still can't believe that you didn't have to give the best one, O.J. Howard, up to Bill Belichick straight up in a trade. So you have 2 more tight ends who can help take reps and burden off Rob Gronkowski through the regular season so that he can be ready for the playoff stretch. And I'm going to remind everybody, even though his numbers were down his last full season in New England, 2018, before he took the year off to work for us at Fox and do wrestling, remember, when it came playoff time after the 2018 season, Rob Gronkowski was all-time. Rob Gronkowski caught the third and 10 conversion that Tom Brady pulled off in overtime at Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. And Rob Gronkowski caught the first pass that Tom threw in that final drive, that middle of the fourth quarter drive for a touchdown that won the Super Bowl against the Rams the following year, because he caught that one and then bookended it with the 29-yard catch down to the 2 that actually set up the touchdown. So he was all-time great when we last saw him. So it's not like his production fell off in the playoffs. It did not. All of a sudden, do you double Gronk? Do you double Mike Evans? What if 2 tight ends are in? What if it's O.J. Howard and Gronk? What if they're both in slots? What if you flex Gronk out? What if you use that little Scottie Miller, who's just a little lightning bullet underneath in short area routes, sort of like Julian and Amendola were for Brady in New England? All of a sudden, it's unstoppable. not to mention a defense that was really coming alive, coached by Todd Bowles, late in the year last year, featuring a Shaq Barrett who led the NFL in sacks, and a front seven that is loaded with Pro Bowl talent. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing a team that, Fox Bet vaulted from 16-1 all the way to 12-1 in Super Bowl odds, and it's one notch ahead of New Orleans at 13-1 in that division. I love them to win the division. I'm not going to go so far as to predict they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I give them a great shot. I need to see who they draft, but I'm going to give them a great shot to get to the Super Bowl and be the first ever home team to play in a home Super Bowl, which is next year in Tampa. Way to go, Brady. Way to go, Gronk. Way to go, me, for making the bet with Shannon Sharpe that Tampa will have a better record than New England next year.
What about Jason Light? He the one that made it happen. He the one that signed Tom Brady and got the Patriots to trade Gronk. Skip, the question is, can Gronk be dominant like he was before, or will he just dominate in spots of the game? You mentioned that Kansas City game. You mentioned that Rams game. He wasn't his dominant self, but he dominated in spots, and maybe that's good enough. Skip, if you remember when Peyton Manning went to the Broncos in 2012, guess what he brought along? Brandon Stokely, Jacob Tamme, brought guys familiar with him, familiar with the system. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to, because that was Peyton's system. Peyton brought his system and installed that, and everybody had to learn that. Now, I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen in Tampa, Skip, but to bring a guy that I'm familiar with, to bring a guy that I know in crucial situations I can depend on will help Tom Brady immensely. Now, Fox Bet got these guys at 12-1 now, but if I'm not mistaken, Kansas City and Baltimore still have better odds. And, Skip, I like playing on the road because if you lost at home, that means you had 80,000 fans that were crying and disappointed in you, as opposed to, So for me, I like playing on the road myself because I like to put that pain on someone else. Want somebody else to feel the misery had we been home and lost. But Skip, look, Tampa seems to be gearing up, and for a guy that doesn't care a whole lot about his legacy, he's sure trying to do a whole lot on the offensive side of football to make sure it stays intact. Wouldn't you say, Skip? But we're going to talk about that. I'm sure there'll be other points in this year that we'll get an opportunity to talk about Tom Brady's legacy. This is not the time I want to talk about his legacy. But I will tell you this. It's offensively, it seems that they're gearing up to be very good offensively. The question is, can a 31-year-old Gronk come back and contribute major with his injury history and after taking a year off? And Tom Brady at 43, what will he look like, Skip? Because at some point in time, it's happening. We age. Things doesn't feel the same as they once did. Now, I will concede this. Being in warm weather, man, that was a beautiful thing. Because I didn't really play a whole lot in warm weather. I played in Baltimore, played in Denver, Skip, as you know. But going to the Super Bowl and practicing in Denver for that week, and then going to warm San Diego and warm Miami, or practicing for a week in Baltimore and going to warm Tampa. Man, that was so distant, old bones, nice. So imagine practicing in that year-round. Yeah, it would make a huge difference. And Skip, I think the biggest difference is that when those guys were nicked up, Coach Belichick had them go out there to practice. If they're nicked up in Tampa, BS going to take the day off. Get healthy. Get your mind right. Get your body right. Let's be ready to roll on Sunday.
Okay, so we look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next year might not have enough training camp to get to know Brady. That was my only significant concern going into next year when I thought they could be 12-4. And obviously, if there's an abbreviated camp because of the situation we're all in, we don't even know exactly if or when the regular season will start. But if it starts on time with abbreviated preparation, at least Brady, this is what I love the most about this, to your point, got a guy he knows by heart, that he trusts that when Rob Gronkowski runs a route, he'll be exactly where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there, and that Brady can trust that. Last year, it looked like he couldn't trust what was happening with Sanu or with N'Keal Harry. He would look at them like, what are you doing? because they weren't yet on the same page. He was always on the same page with Rob Gronkowski, high football IQ, and right away, it'll be like riding a bicycle. They'll be right back on that same page on a bicycle built for two. And even if Gronk can only help, let's just say in the red zone as a 6'6", 260 or 70 pound target, bully for him. And again, it looks like he's lost some weight. Is that a good thing as he goes into his early 30s? Yeah, it could be a good thing. Maybe he's not the best blocking tight end as he used to be in football, and that's okay. Maybe he's just a pretty good blocking tight end occasionally. Maybe you need to flex him more and play him in the slot as sort of a quasi, just bigger wideout. That's okay, because Brady depends on him, Brady trusts him, and all of a sudden you've got one weapon who's completely in sync with Tom Brady. And that's the best thing about this, that Brady got his own guy as they go into maybe a quicker start to the season than anybody would like.
Yeah, Skip, when I look at Gronk, I think he's going to have to change the way he lifts. Skip, you lift different. You know, I lift different now than when I played. I put the body under more stress when I played because I needed to take those blows. Yep. See, Skip, as Tom Brady can use those bands and those plows and all that stuff. But, Skip, you know when you take those shots like Gronk's going to be taking, you have to retrain your body. And, Skip, he's going to have to get his mind focused now because he knows defenses. But now he's going to have to anticipate how soon is that backside safety? How soon is that front side safety? How soon is the backer going to get there? Learn how to fall all over again. But I'm not saying he needs to go back up to 270, 275. Maybe 250, 255 would be an ideal weight. But he's going to have to get back under that iron and put that body under stress again of lifting as opposed to walking around and slamming beers. He's going to have to change the way he lifts. That's for sure. Okay, but remember, he is reunited also with Brady's trainer, and he loves pliability as much as Tom loves pliability. So I think that's going to be exciting for him too. And I think you'll see a longer, leaner, more flexible Gronk than maybe you saw in the past. I don't know if that program dictates getting under the iron like you're talking about. So we'll see about that. But my final quick point here is, remember, they've got the 14th overall pick. And right now, Mel Kiper's got them taking Andrew Thomas, who's that stud left tackle out of Georgia, out of the Atlanta area. That would be so great for Brady to have that guy because he's a 3-year starter at Georgia, and you could just plug and play with him. And then Tampa's got a pick in the middle of every round from there on. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's got the middle round pick where they can keep taking. Maybe they take that Clyde Edwards-Helaire who can really catch it and run with it out of the backfield and be Tom's James White. I love the chances of this team, especially let's see what they do with the draft. Well, Skip, I would definitely be looking to take an offensive lineman to shore that up to make sure Tom Brady is protected. If all things being equal, if one of those top guards, if you could take one tackle and put him at guard, because where Tom needs to be protected, Skip, is up the middle. Because he can slide, he can get outside, make plays outside, but you want to keep people out of his face. That's where he's most vulnerable. And so if you can protect him up to guard to guard, Tom Brady should be just fine. So I would have no problem with them taking an offensive lineman.
I'm so excited for the draft and high expectations for this Bucs team.
No mercy.
Said it was wrong of Scottie Pippen to have undergone foot surgery right before the start of the 1997-98 season because he could have had surgery earlier on in the summer. But here's the thing. Teammate Steve Kerr did not agree, saying he and plenty of other teammates really were not upset with Pippen and the timing of the surgery. He said they held no resentment towards when he decided to get the surgery done. So, Shannon, are you on Kerr's side here or Michael Jordan?
I'm on Steve Kerr's side, Skip. Now, I believe two things can be true. I believe Steve Kerr and a lot of the other teammates were not upset at Scottie. They had the utmost respect for him. They knew Jerry Krause was a butt to Scottie Pippen and should have renegotiated contract. Well, don't sign this long-term deal. Don't come back. I get all that. But he should have renegotiated that deal. But I also believe that Michael Jordan was upset with Scottie Pippen because you know why he was upset, unlike most of them, Skip? Only Michael Jordan's legacy was going to be impacted had they lost. If they lose, nobody's going to say, man, Steve Kerr lost that last year. Dennis Rodman, Scottie, Luke Longley, whomever else, Scottie Burrell. Only Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was extremely selfish. You talking about Scottie Pippen was selfish. You were selfish. First of all, I don't care if you Michael Jordan. I don't care if you Michael Buffer. I don't care if you Michael B. Jordan. Don't you speak on my money. Now, while Scottie Pippen was making $2.8 million, Michael Jordan was making $33 million. If you want to talk about being unselfish, Mike, you should have went to Jerry Krause and said, hey, man, I know I'm supposed to make $33 million, but break Scottie Pippen $10 million of my money off. So instead of making 33, let me make 23 and pass Scottie Pippen, let him make 12.8. That's what you should have done, but you're speaking on that man's money. Scottie Pippen should have stepped to it. I know that's what old Sharpe would have done. Hey, bro, I know you goating all and you doing all that other stuff, but don't speak on my money now. That ain't what we do here. You don't speak on another man's money. Skip Bayless, you know it. That's why you laughing. You don't speak on another man's money. Michael Jordan talk about that man selfish. Huh? You were selfish for taking all the money. Made $30 million one year, then 33 the next year. You were selfish. You should have said, hey, you know what? I know I can make all this because Skip Bayless been telling everybody, and I'm glad this subject came up. Dak Prescott, you got all these national commercials. You making all this money. Give him a little discount. You ain't say that about Mike. Mike had Hanes. Mike had Gatorade. Mike had everything. And he got $33 million. Not one time did you say Michael Jordan should have broke bread with Scottie Pippen and let him get $10 million. You ain't do that, did you? But you want Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, you see what he doing? Don't you give him no discount either. But I believe Michael Jordan was very upset at Scottie because he knew this was going to impact his legacy. The other guys was going to have no bearing. There was nobody that was going to be Skip if they won this championship was going to get in the Hall of Fame. Dennis Rodman was already going to be a Hall of Famer, Skip, because he had 4 championships and 2 Defensive Players of the Year. Scottie Pippen was already going to get in the Hall of Fame. So nobody else was going to be impacted like Michael Jordan was. And Michael Jordan was upset that Scottie did this and put this last dance, a loss in the title game, against a loss for the championship in jeopardy by him having foot surgery so late.
Shannon Sharpe. Once upon a time during a practice, Michael Jordan stepped to Steve Kerr and popped him right in the jaw, right in his pretty face. And I would submit to you right now that as we speak, Michael would like to step to Steve Kerr again and pop him one quick time right in that pretty face of his. I don't know. From what you just said, Michael might want to step to Shannon Sharpe, though I think at this point, as we see Michael at age 57, I'm not sure he could handle Shannon Sharpe now. Maybe back in 98, he could have handled Shannon Sharpe, though it would have been a good fight. I'll give you that. But here's my point. I am so with Michael Jordan over this, and I am so ashamed that I'm actually sharing a show with a man who just turned Michael Jeffrey Jordan selfish for wanting to win games. Michael didn't care about winning legacy games. He cared about winning this game tonight and that game tomorrow and that game the next week. Yeah. He just was driven to win the next game before him. And the point was that Scottie Pippen was willing to handicap a championship team and sacrifice winning so that he could protest a contract that he signed, a contract that originally Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner of the Bulls, tried to talk him out of signing. It's on Scottie. He put pen to paper and inked the deal because he wanted long-term security. And obviously, as he rose in stature in the league fairly quickly, that contract got rendered obsolete fairly quickly. I get all that. I also remind you, Michael Jordan took far less than market value for a whole bunch of years before those final 2 years to help the Bulls have more cap flexibility to add some pieces around him. So I'm ashamed that anybody would think, especially Steve Kerr, that, oh, it's no problem. We don't have any problem with Scottie. He said in the documentary, Scottie says, I didn't want to get surgery too early and F up my summer. Really?
Exactly.
You're kidding.
Yes.
You have a chance for a second three-peat for 6th ring, and you're saying, I'm going to take my time on surgery, and I'll be back at midseason when you really need me. And obviously they got off to a little bit of a rocky start. They started 4-4. And then all of a sudden Jordan said, okay, enough of that. And I will give you this. Rodman started to step up and take a little stronger role in being the second star on that team. And here they went. And they went 62-20 that year, which was good enough. It was just fine. So they didn't really miss Scottie that much. And yet this whole notion of, I'm going to wait on surgery because you're screwing me with my contract that I signed. Yes. This is why, in the end, this is why Pippen wasn't Jordan. Jordan would have never thought like that. Jordan just was obsessed and possessed with winning championships, winning games that led to winning championships. And there's no way he's going to sacrifice his team's ability to win so that he could improve his personal contractual status. And I'm ashamed of Steve Kerr saying that. Again, Steve's a nice guy and he loves everybody. And it's like, oh, let's peace and love. It's all okay. If you need to do that, that's fine with us. Okay, maybe you say, two things can be true. But I am with Michael Jeffrey Jordan on this, and you should be too. And I think you are.
Skip Bayless. No, hold on. You keep telling me Scottie Pippen was nothing. He was nothing. And Michael Jordan's the GOAT. He didn't need Scottie Pippen. Why you worried about it? Scottie Pippen waited to have surgery the day of the season started. Why you worried about it? You the GOAT. That's what you've been telling everybody. He didn't need Scottie Pippen. Now all of a sudden Scottie Pippen is selfish because Scottie's worried about Scottie. Scottie was in a very different situation, Skip. He had two people in his home that were in wheelchairs, and he wanted the security to make sure they could be provided for. I don't fault that man for that. I do not, because I would have done the exact same thing, and a lot of times I did early in my career take less money because I didn't want my grandmother to ever have to worry about anything ever again. But Skip Bayless.
Okay,
but
so good.
It's easy to say.
Okay.
Skip.
Go ahead.
But you keep saying, Mike, it's easy to say somebody being selfish when you making $33 million and you getting another 15 from Nike, and you getting Hanes money, you getting McDonald's money, you getting Gatorade money. It's easy to say somebody that man making $2.8 million. Probably ain't got nothing off the field, and then you gonna talk about that man selfish. It reminds me of a guy. Hold on. Then DeMarcus Lawrence says, I'll tell you what, y'all franchising don't give me that much money. I'm going to wait right before the season started to get them shoulders worked on. And what happened, Skip? It's amazing. Now, Jerry Krause stuck to his gun, says, I'm not redoing it. Jerry Jones buckled and had to do the deal. So Scottie Pippen tried to put as much pressure as he possibly could, hoping that Jerry Krause would change his mind. He didn't. But Michael Jordan was out of line. I don't care if you're the GOAT. I don't care what you are. You can be a buffalo for all I care. Don't speak on my money.
Which side of your mouth are you speaking out of? Because out of one side over here, you say, I'm just fine with Pip saying, I'm going to take care of those two people in wheelchairs who are living in my house back in Arkansas. Good. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Take the money up front, the security up front, sign the dotted line, and live with it. Mm-hmm. Now, out of the other side of your mouth, you're saying, sacrifice. Make it harder for the team to win. You're obviously the second best player on the team. Like and again, Michael showed you that year he didn't really need him. He never really needed him. And when Scottie had the team to himself, 93-94, Scottie, boy, in that game 3 against the Knicks in the playoffs, he took himself out of the game. That showed you, that exposed Scottie for what he really was. He just didn't have the winner intangibles that Michael was born with and gifted with and that drove the Bulls. Michael didn't ultimately need Scottie Pippen. It was nice to have the second best player on the team, but it was Michael who spoke out and said it's wrong to do that to a team because everybody should be all in on winning the way Michael was. Money or no money, you signed it, you live with it. I'm sorry, that's it. And I'm sorry, Steve Kerr. I guess Steve now thinks he's full of himself because he won 3 rings as a coach outside of Michael Jordan. Yeah. Way to go.
He sure did. And he went to San Antonio and won some more rings without Mike. It's easy to say somebody else is being selfish when you making $33 million from the Bulls and probably another $30+ million off the court. It's easy to say somebody else being selfish when you got that kind of gravy coming in. Stop that, Skip Bayless.
No mercy.
Welcome back to Undisputed. All right, guys, Tom Brady and Michael Jordan are both considered by many to be the GOAT in their respective sport. Both have multiple MVPs. Both have 6 championships. Michael Jordan has the record for most points scored in a playoff, while Tom Brady has the record for most passing yards in a playoff game. So, Shannon, when you consider both of these all-time greats, who is more clutch?
Skip, I'm going to try to explain this the best way I possibly can. Because football, there is no tomorrow. Hopefully I can provide some context for people. An NFL playoff game is a game 7 in every other sport in North America. Hockey, basketball, baseball. That's what football is, because it's finite. You know, you lose game 1, Skip. You remember the 91 finals against the Lakers. The Bulls lost the first game. So had that been football, it was over. They would have lost the finals. Tom Brady played 41 game 7s. And I think he won 30 of those games, or 31 of those games. So let that sink in for a second. Imagine Michael Jordan played 5 game 7s. He's 3-2. Tom Brady played 41 game 7s. Because that's what football playoff is. There is no tomorrow. There is no, man, we had an off game, but, we'll come back, we'll regroup, we'll get them. Tomorrow is next year. That's what an NFL playoff game. I said all of that, and Tom Brady has been clutch beyond clutch. I would trust Michael Jordan to take a last-second shot as opposed to Tom Brady throwing a last-second pass. That's where I am on that, Skip. I'm done.
Okay. I'm glad you struggle with this, because so did I. I am so conflicted because you know that Michael Jordan is everything to me. My all-time favorite player out in team sports. Ali was my favorite sort of competitor as a boxer and as just as a man for all that he accomplished. And yet, when it comes to MJ, I can't not go with him. So if I have one shot for my life, I want Michael Jeffrey Jordan to take that shot. But now, to your point, bigger picture, even though Tom Brady doesn't have a signature shot like Michael did at the end of his freshman year in college, he beat Georgetown in the national championship game with it was 15 seconds last shot, they were down 1. Again, to your point, Georgetown got the ball back and screwed it up, but still, he made the shot that won the national championship, and obviously, he made the walk-off shot at the end of his career that we're going to see at the end of The Last Dance, Game 6 at Utah. I was there. And yet, Brady, while he doesn't have that signature walk-off, that pass, the catch, Dwight Clark from Joe Montana, even though that wasn't a walk-off, but Brady doesn't have that. No. So while he's not more clutch than Jordan, he's been clutch more than Jordan because he's had so many more, to your point, sort of Game 7 opportunities, including the AFC Championship games. Because I got to throw in to his vast resume, the 2 AFC Championship games of recent memory when he came back on Saxonville when everybody thought they had the best defense in pro football that year. They're down 20-10 early in the fourth quarter, and he throws for 138 with the 12 stitches in the palm of his throwing hand to pull them out of that game. And then he follows that up the next year with going to Kansas City and completing in overtime, converting 3 straight 3rd and 10s. It's just impossible to do that on the road in the cold. And those are just AFC Championship games. And then Tom's got 6 rings on 6 game-winning fourth quarter drives. So they're down in every fourth quarter of all those games, and he brings them back. And sometimes you have said, well, Vinatieri won those games with field goals, especially those first two games. Well, look at what Tom did as a baby, his first year starting against the Rams in that first Super Bowl. He completes passes when John Madden's up in the booth saying, they had to shut the kid down here and just play for overtime. He completes a pass of 5 yards, 8 yards, 11 yards, and then with 29 seconds left, he completes a 23-yarder to set up the 49-yard field goal. Okay, so you got to give him some clutchness there because he could have screwed it up and thrown a pick. And then the next year he comes back against Carolina, and to set up the game-winning field goal, he completes passes of 13, 13, 4, and then 17 yards to Deion Branch with 14 seconds left. 17 yards to Deion Branch. That's clutch, man, to set up the game-winning field goal. So he had to get Vinatieri in that position. And then need I bring up the fact that in the first Eli Super Bowl, he did what he always does late in the game. He drives them down, what was it? First Eli, it's 80 yards. He drove them 80 yards down for a touchdown with 2:45 left to put them ahead by 4 points. And again, Belichick's defense let Eli come back 75 yards for the game winner. So again, Brady did his part and could have had a fourth quarter game-winning drive in the first Eli. And in the second Eli, he didn't have Gronk, who was hobbled around. He had a bad ankle that day. And he still came within one kind of off-target throw of winning that Super Bowl with a late drive. And Wes Welker, I think, should have caught that ball. And then, of course, in the other loss, he throws for 505 yards and put up 33 points on Philadelphia. And Belichick's defense, for some reason, Malcolm Butler benched that game. We still don't know why. Belichick's defense gives up 41 to Philly's backup quarterback, Nick Foles. So Brady did a lot in that game that could have made him an even bigger winner. So when I look at clutchness over a vast expanse of time, Brady has been clutch more than Michael was, just because Brady's had so many more opportunities. And, not to mention that against Seattle in the fourth quarter, they're down 24-14, and he throws for 124 and brings them back against the Legion of Boom. Against Atlanta, they're down 28-3 in part because of a pick six he threw, and he brings them back with 246 yards passing just in the fourth quarter and overtime to pull that game out. Epic comeback. I don't know what else I can tell you except he's been clutch for years upon years. But in the end, I'm with you. I still want Michael taking my last shot to save my life.
Skip, maybe it's me, and I play the game of football, Skip, but a game-winning drive doesn't seem as dramatic as a walk-off home run or a last-second game-winning shot or somebody putting the puck into the net. Skip, because it's a series of, it's 10, like you mentioned, it's 10 plays, it's 14 plays where it's one shot and the ball's over the fence. Or it's one slap of the stick and the puck's in the net. Or Jordan holding the pole, you're like, that's it. And I think when people look at it, Skip, they don't look at Tom Brady as like a game-winning drive. I'm talking about a game-winning throw. They don't look at a game-winning drive the same as a last-second shot or a walk-off because it's a series of throws. But for me, like I said, you think about it. Tom Brady, one game. If Tom Brady lose, because think about it, Skip, there have been times that he lost in the divisional round and it's over. Just think if Michael Jordan would have just lost one game, he doesn't get an opportunity to advance to finals. So it's not like he went undefeated throughout all his finals. He did lose a game and it's over. And so for me, like I said, Tom Brady has been more clutch, but for one shot, you want a shot or a throw, Skip. But like you said, for your life, I'm taking Mike.
Okay. And yet, to your biggest point, the reason it's hard for any of us to even put Brady in the same sentence or conversation with Michael Jordan, Brady just doesn't look the part or act the part. When we think of that 40-yard dash he ran at the combine, he looks so unathletic, so geeky, so gawky that you think, him more clutch than Michael Jordan? Well, yeah.
Be like Michael, be like Tom.
A 40-yard dash is never going to go away for Tom Brady, especially with that coming up tomorrow. I actually do have more Tom Brady for you guys because 49ers GM John Lynch said they actually thought about pursuing Brady in free agency. We will dive into everything there next.
No mercy.
Tonight on FS1, watch our very own Shannon Sharpe win his second championship alongside John Elway in Super Bowl 33 as the Broncos battle the Falcons. Fox Sports presents Greatest Games tonight at 9 Eastern on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. Shannon, don't you worry, I will be watching that one. All right, this is interesting, guys. 49ers GM John Lynch, well, he admitted that he and head coach Kyle Shanahan did think about the idea of possibly pursuing Tom Brady in free agency. Lynch went on to say that Tom is an all-time great. You have to at least consider it. But then he went on to add that now more than ever, they believe Jimmy Garoppolo is the long-term answer for San Francisco. So Shannon, do you have a problem with Lynch saying this, admitting it?
Skip, I'm surprised. Normally general managers and front office people do not discuss internal conversations publicly. I don't know what compelled John to do this, but I think a lot of teams probably had this discussion, Skip, and probably looked at it as like, okay, long term, I mean, for the short term fix, yeah, this might be a good idea, but long term, we're trying to build this thing for the foreseeable future. And where we are is where we need to be. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo had a problem with it, Skip, for the simple fact, hell, he almost got a job the exact same way they were looking to replace him. Coach Belichick was looking to replace, how ironic would that have been, was looking to replace Brady with Jimmy Garoppolo. So, Skip, for me, I'm just surprised that he voiced this publicly because we don't normally see general managers or front office people discuss internal conversations publicly. But this goes to show, Skip, what happened to everybody wanted him? He was a must-have. We got to have him. Say, we talked about this for a day or two. And like, nah, we good. A lot of other teams did the exact same thing. You got to kick the tires,
No,
Skip.
they did not.
Yeah, they kick the tires.
I got two major problems with this. And for the record, I love John Lynch, another former teammate of ours here at Fox. Great player. Mm-hmm. And I think he's turning into a great GM. But I think there, to your point, is a lesson to be learned here. I don't know where the win is in acknowledging this publicly. And the reason I have problems are, number one, the message that you're sending to not only Jimmy G, but to your team. Hey, everybody, we actually pondered for a day or two replacing Jimmy Garoppolo. Man, you can't do that to your quote-unquote franchise quarterback, especially after he went south in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. He went 3 of 8 with an interception as you blew a, 20-10 lead in the fourth quarter, mostly because of a Jimmy G who then missed Emmanuel Sanders wide open for a touchdown that could have, should have won the football game for San Francisco. So I got a problem with what you do to his confidence going forward or the team's confidence in him going forward. But here's my bigger problem. You acknowledged that you seriously considered bringing in Tom Brady and you didn't do it. Shannon, I'm on record. I tweeted during that fourth quarter, the 49ers would have won that game with Tom Brady at the controls, and they could win Super Bowls, plural, with Tom Brady the next 2 years back in his home area of the Bay Area, obviously, for the team that he grew up loving, the 49ers. So if you acknowledge that you seriously considered it, and then you say, and yet a couple days later, Kyle and I looked at each other like, you know what? We like Jimmy G. Don't tell me that, because you're telling me you could have had Tom Brady. And don't tell me that if you had gone to Tom and said, how about coming home for your last 2 years, that he wouldn't have done it, or even over Tampa Bay's situation. You can't tell me that, because he does love him some 49ers. He grew up, going to games at Candlestick. Now they're playing south of that down in, as you know, in Santa Clara. But the point is, they have a terrific football team. They're still in the Fox bet. They're still one notch ahead of Tampa Bay in the third spot to Tampa Bay's fourth, where they're 12-1. Obviously, the Bucs have risen to 12-1 now that they added Gronkowski. But it would have been easy to get out from under Garoppolo's contract. It had an out clause that would allow you to get out from under him with very minimal penalty. So I've talked about it on the show constantly. I thought coming right out of the Super Bowl, they should have moved heaven and earth to get Tom to come home for his last 2 years. And I think the joke's going to be on them. And I can't wait for next year. I'm just hoping that let's just say the 49ers and Bucs meet in the NFC Championship game. I got Brady over Jimmy G. Thank you very much.
Jimmy G is going to take him down. Skip, here's the thing. You said you don't want Lynch doing that because if your quarterback goes south, well, if he goes south again like he went in that Super Bowl, they won't be pondering it. They'll be doing it. Kyle and John Lynch will be doing what they were pondering doing, and that's moving on for Jimmy Garoppolo, Skip. And look, this is not earth-shattering news. They're pondering all the positions. So Jimmy knows they're not just talking about him. Any chance they see they can upgrade and possibly get better, cheaper, that's what they're going to do. Because I don't know what Jimmy's going to wait, probably make $27, $28 million. That's probably what his cap hit might be less because they gave him a lot of money up front. So for me, Skip, look, like I said, I'm just shocked because I've never heard a team go public about internal discussions. And I don't know, and I agree with you, I don't know what to be gained from that. You think Jimmy's pleased with that, although he understands the business of it. And then, I think like what, you had an opportunity you possibly get Tom and you didn't. So you just subject yourself for criticism that you didn't need. There's going to be criticism enough. I don't think you should have subjected yourself to that type of criticism. But again, Skip, look, I guess this is the new age now, John, and they've been very open. It was broached to him that, reading the article, reading an article a couple of weeks ago, Skip, that Coach Belichick offered Tom Brady originally. And Mr. Kraft shot that down. It's like, well, okay, I can't give you Tom. How about Jimmy? You want Jimmy for a second round pick? And John and Kyle had like, hell yeah.
Okay. So let me put you on the spot with just a yes or no response. If you had a chance to take Brady for the next 2 years over Jimmy G, would you have done it if you were John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan?
No, not for the offense that Kyle's run. No. They need a mobile quarterback, and Tom is not mobile.
Big mistake. I still say, Shannon, that if you had Tom Brady coming home with that team, he's going to make more clutch plays. We just talked about how clutch he's been. More clutch plays than Jimmy G, who tends to unravel in the biggest moments in the biggest games.
Jimmy G got it this year. I'm not saying they're going to get back to the Super Bowl, but I believe he'll even play better than what he played last year.
All right. Enough there, guys. I want to talk a little bit more about MJ. How unprecedented was it for him to allow camera crews all access to his final season with the Bulls? We'll dive in next. No mercy. Warriors co-executive chairman Peter Guber was a producer on The Last Dance, but he admitted that Golden State has not allowed all-access cameras to film because it would be, quote, hubris. So, Shannon, this begs the question, are you surprised that Michael Jordan allowed so much access, all of these cameras to film behind the scenes for his last year in Chicago?
I am not. Because as the organization had made it very clear that Phil Jackson was not coming back, Michael Jordan dug in also, said no Phil, no Michael. He knew this was going to be his last year. So why not document it, Skip? It's hard for me to believe that when it gets like, say, LeBron is, say, 1,000 points or 1,500 points from Kareem record, if that were to happen, it's hard for me to imagine that he's not going to document that. I can assure you that when guys, because I don't know, Skip, maybe you know it. Like I said, Michael knew that they had already said Phil's not coming back. So Michael knows he's not coming back. So I don't know if guys know that, man, this is my last year, and so you're going to document that. But Skip, for me, I wish I could have had some behind-the-scene footage because that's what I miss most was the memories. Because you get into sports, you want to make money, you want to have memories. And you like to be able to go back and look back and like, man, I remember that, man, we was having a good old time then. And you just have that stored in your memory as opposed to being able to plug it in and look at it. So I'm not surprised Michael did it. I'm surprised Golden State didn't do it, Skip, because there was a great chance that KD wasn't going to be back.
Yeah, I agree with you about Golden State. That surprises me. But Shannon, I was there in '98, columnist for the Chicago Tribune, around the team on a daily basis. I am shocked that Michael Jordan signed off on behind-the-scenes, bird's-eye view footage allowed for the whole season, even though, to your point, you think it's your last dance, so you want to document it. But I saw camera crews everywhere that year. I did not know that one of those crews was actually getting to go behind closed doors on a daily and nightly basis. And if you told me that then, I would have been shocked, because the Jordan I got to know that year was so fiercely protective of his image. Remember when Sam Smith wrote that book off the first championship run called The Jordan Rules, Jordan just said, I laughed at it and moved on, because he did not love the fact that that pulled back the curtain on what he was like behind the scenes, let alone to sign off on behind the scenes for a whole year. It's not just Hard Knocks for the preseason, it's for the whole year.
Right.
And Michael said, you know, I don't want to come across as a horrible person in the documentary, and I'm waiting to see the next 8 episodes. Is he going to come off worse and worse behind the scenes? I don't know, maybe.
For him to say that, Skip, obviously he knows there are more parts to this documentary that's going to get released that could possibly paint him in that light.
So much more to see. That is it for us, guys. Great show. Join us again tomorrow, same time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Have a good day, guys.